Everybody, so today we're talking about the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Hey everybody, my name is Sophie, the bookish floor. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're brand new here, hi, welcome. We are gonna be talking today about the book The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Susan Collins, which is a prequel to the Hunger Games. And if you're back, well, you know that I love these books. And I might be one of the only ones who actually love The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with why am I here? Why am I presenting all of this evidence? And why am I in the defense of this book? Okay, so first of all, I know that nobody's talking about this book necessarily right now. Everybody's talking about Sunrise. Everybody's talking about Sunrise on the Reaping, and I have already read that book. But I just wanted to go ahead and talk to you guys about this book in reference, I get, or with some references from the other books, including Sunrise on the Reaping. Okay, so I'm gonna be doing this more of an essay form, I guess, with all the things that I have gathered and all the research and the meticulous listening that I did to the audiobook one more time because I've already read the book. I read it not as soon as it came out. I read it, I think, when the movie was announced, which wasn't also like right away when the book came out. Not like Sunrise and the Reaping. I think the book came out, it was received like lukewarm reviews, and then the movie was announced, and I decided, you know what, this is the best time to read it and to see what's actually going on. And I liked it. And when I went back to see different types of reviews, I realized that I felt like I read a very different book with a very different focus. So that is what I'm gonna be talking about with you guys today. And upon my reread, because I wanted to make sure that I didn't get it wrong, then maybe perhaps I missed something or I misread something or I mislistened to something. To my surprise, I ended up with the same conclusion. So I don't know if it's just me that is looking for other things. The first time it was just the first read without reading any reviews or anything. And I came out with a certain conclusion. And this time I came out with the same conclusion. Based on everything everyone has already said about this book, I'm still thinking differently. So this is my take on the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The first thing that I have to discuss with you when it came to this book is the battle or the argument of nature versus nurture. So from the beginning, from my first read, from me watching the movie and then having a second read, that was the main thing that I had in my mind, the main focus. The one of the main themes that kept on coming back was nature versus nurture. Now, what is that? The expression of nature versus nurture describes the question of how much a person's characteristics are formed by either nature or nurture. Nature means innate biological factors, mainly genetics, while nurture can refer to upbringing or life experience more generally. So when it comes to nature versus nurture, I always felt like that was the main battle with snow. Now, before I go on, in case Hannah from A Clockwork Reader is here or anyone else is here, I am not here to defend Snow. I'm here to defend the book, which is very different. Um, Snow is a villain. We see him do horrible things, and I agree with Hannah when she did her video for Sunrise and the Reaping that he is even probably at his most villainous in that time period, like at the Court of Quell with Haymitch's games. So this is not in defense of him. Uh, and I think it's very important for me to say that because a lot of people, after the movie, based on who was cast and all that, and kind of the emphasis that people were looking for in the story between him and Lucy, which I'll get into later on, did a lot of like clips and reels and things about like love and him and maybe trying to redeem him. And I don't think that's the point of the book at all. And obviously, there is no way that you can do that if you are looking for the clues in here and in all the other Hunger Games books. Like, there is no way that you can do that. However, and I just want to say this, having empathy, having sympathy, and having understanding are three very different things. And I'm not here to give him my empathy or my sympathy, simply to understand who this character is. And that is the only reason why I'm talking about this and Snow, and why it's important for us to understand him in order to understand other people in real life. We don't want to sympathize with them. We don't want to show empathy towards them, because there's no reason for us to do that. It is important for us to understand how they get from A to C in order to recognize those patterns in real life and stop people in the middle of that pattern, or be aware of it and start the revolution probably maybe earlier. So, with that being said, let's talk about Snow and his nature versus nurture. So, here what I did is I divided the three main families of the whole book into nature versus nurture, right? So, this is just the main focus that I'm doing for them at this point. So, for example, for the Snows, we have three main characters, which is Tigress, Snow, Coriolanus Snow, and the grandmother. And we can clearly see that nature versus nurture dilemma right there in his household. I think Snow it's in the middle, and that is the point of this book, to show him in the middle of that argument, of that pendulum, and of that journey, and see where he's gonna land. We already know where he lands, but how he gets there. We see his grandma, who is extremely patriotic towards Panem. She believes 100% in everything that the capital is saying and telling her, and how they are different from the districts and what happened in the revolution and all that. And then we see Tigress, who is also part of the capital. Obviously, she's there, but she has another point of view. She's not stuck in her apartment like the grandma. She's not a little out of it. She can see reality. She goes through some things in order to survive in the capital. And she has seen another side of the capital that the grandma hasn't seen. So her environment has made her believe perhaps that people from the capital and people from the districts are not that different. Now, I think it's also important for me to emphasize right here that nature versus nurture doesn't mean that nature is evil and nurture is good. It just means that whatever you might be, good or evil, could be predestined, I guess, in nature by genetics, like the simple explanation says, or whether your environment makes you who you are. And again, this can be either way, depending on how you take in your environment. It can turn you. For Tigress, she works from a place of empathy and sympathy, and that is why she is able to see the difficulties from the capital and see that it's not that different from the districts. The grandma is not able to do that. And Snow is constantly going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. However, he is dismissive of a lot of things. A lot of things that grandma does patriotically, or says, he dismisses as maybe old age, and maybe grandma isn't all here. And then a lot of things that Tigress does, he also dismisses as someone who might not know what's really going on, might not know actual suffering, might not have ambition or need to accomplish something else. And that is his own way of being back and forth. He fights against the nurture of being evil, but he also fights against the nurture of being good. So that's why I say that he's always like back and forth, back and forth. And this is the story that I think it's being told, and this is what I see from the Snows. Okay, and then we have the Plinths. We see that the father is making money from the capital, and he is able to immigrate and thrive not only survive but thrive after the war, during the war, and after the war. And Mrs. Plint is just there adapting and making the most of it. I feel like both of them are very much in their nurture way. Whatever the situation presents for them is what they decide is gonna be best, and whatever they might be feeling inside could be put to the side in order for them again to survive and thrive. Mr. Plant doesn't show any signs of feeling any differently. So his nature might be in that way of just surviving and thriving. And Mrs. Plant does seem to have a little bit more of a problem with the way capital things are, the way the capital handles things. However, again, she's in kind of survival mode and trying to just make the most of whatever environment she's in. However, we have Sejanus, who Sejanus is the moral compass to an extreme. He is definitely going with his nature, going with what he truly believes to his core that are the right things to do. And he doesn't care in what environment they are. He is going to have the same values and the same focus and the same mindset no matter what. You can change that scenario for him and he will still feel the same way. So, very much in his nature. And then we have the Covey, which is the other family, not necessarily by blood, all of them, but they are a group who were traveling musicians when the war broke out. They have been trapped ever since in District 12, and they have become, I guess, part of District 12. However, most of them, especially the main character from the Covey, which is Lucy Gray, doesn't consider herself part of District 12, and that is also a catalyst for the rest of the things that happen to her or how she is viewed throughout. She is considered, or she considered herself and the Kavi more free, more of everyone, and they are definitely following their nature when it comes to the way they live, the way they believe things should be. However, we see Lucy Gray, and I feel like her name fits perfectly because she is very much in that gray area. She knows what's good and what's bad, what's good and what's evil, what should be done and shouldn't be done. But when the situation is presented, she will follow whatever the environment makes her do in order for her again to survive. She will not yield to her nature and be undone. She will do whatever she needs. And we see her doing that from the beginning until the end. The way she reacts is a little bit more of a survival mode. I feel like she is constantly on survival mode, assessing her environment and trying to adapt to it. Which is natural for people from the Kavi who are used to being free and now they are like cage birds, right? Okay, then we have the academy. Now, this is not a family per se, but it is presented as a another element, I guess. And I feel like the academy plays a very big role in Corio's demise and in Corio's becoming who he is. The thing is that we don't expect how, and this is how I see it. I see that we have someone in the academy like Sejanus that is completely in their nature, and that is Dr. Gall. Now, Dr. Gall is completely in their nature, but not in a good way. She is obviously someone who is very sick, someone who has something going on in her mind. She definitely needs help. She could be a psychopath. She is definitely someone who is out for blood and revenge and see things very black and white. We are superior, they are animals. And she refers to that a lot. And she says that what people will become when they are in those extreme situations. And even when she is challenged and is told that they wouldn't be that if they weren't in those situations, she says that they themselves got themselves in those situations. So again, it's always blaming them, it's always saying that they are less than the capital people are, and always the evil, the bigotry, yeah, being that us versus them dynamic in her head. Now we see also Dean Highbottom. Now, Dean Highbottom is a tricky one because we see his true nature, but he acts in nurture. So Dean Highbottom uh, is the one who is presented as the game maker, the creator of the games. We later on realize that it's not actually him, but um, no, like the idea for the games was him in a drunken night. He did an assignment for school. He presented the idea as a joke, and then Mr. Snow, Corio's dad, took that, presented it as his homework, and that's where the idea kind of, or the as a team homework, and that's how the idea of the games was born. But that was never supposed to be seen by anyone. So Dean Highbottom has a lot of regret about that, has a lot of shame about that, but he is still there. He is still there in the capital, surviving, not thriving. Although he is the game maker, although he is someone who is respected, he is the dean of the academy. He is just barely surviving because of the guilt. And well, and then in him trying so hard to stop Snow, uh he is kind of fueling Snow. Whenever Dean Highbottom says something to him to put him down, to reveal who he really is, he tells him that he notices that his clothes are old, his shoes are too tight, he hasn't eaten, all of the things that um make Koryo shameful of his situation, and it makes him want to thrive and not only survive in the capital, is kind of putting salt in the wound for Snow, and is fueling him to prove him wrong, to prove to Dean Highbottom that he is better, that he is Snow, that Snow lands on top. He really does have hatred towards the Snow, and perhaps his sole mission is to make Corio's life impossible and for him to not thrive. However, instead of nurturing him, instead of showing him um, another way, becoming someone who would try to sway him into good, he becomes part of the seed that is um, in Coriolanus Snow, part of the reasons why he becomes who he becomes. Again, not empathy, not sympathy, is just a fact. So that is the nature versus nurture that is kind of discussed in this book. And although obviously what I'm telling you is gonna be a little bit more superficial, and you can go into researching those topics and maybe looking into those characters a bit more, uh, that is what I feel definitely is the exploration of why someone becomes who they are, and why Snow Choreo became who he was. And even in the name, we see him constantly being called Choreo by those who love him and believe the good in him. And Coriolanus is the name that we know him from the end of the Hunger Games, right? Coriolanus, no. Nobody calls him Corio anymore. This is the only place where we see him being called Corio. So I cannot help but wonder, if that conflict wasn't there, would there be a Snow? And the other side is Dr. Go, who is also telling him all that he could be, all that they should be, all the differences between them and the district. Those two people in the academy are really shaping who he's gonna be. And no one takes the opportunity to shape them or show him a better way. One is trying to stop him by kind of humiliating him and thinking that that is the way, and that feels really old school, like teacher kind of style, very old school parenting, like if you misbehave, I'll just punish you, instead of trying to teach you or guide you. And it's very much the games. We will just punish you no matter what. And obviously, there's quite a difference between being a parent or a teacher who's trying to guide someone than what the government of Panem is doing, right? Um, so let's get into the government. So when it comes to politics, we have to understand a little bit of uh, what it is. And I know you're probably all gonna be like, well, of course we understand we all have governments. However, this wasn't always the case. The emergence of organized city states, often centered around major river systems, marked a significant step towards the development of formal government. These city states, such as those in Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt, likely had leaders or rulers who oversaw irrigation system, resource management, and trade. As societies grew and settled, there was a need for more formalized systems of governance to manage resources, resolve disputes, and coordinate social activities. This led to the development of leadership roles, hierarchies, and institutions that we recognize as the beginnings of government. Now, this wasn't always the case. Obviously, at the beginning of time, this type of government didn't exist, or this type of social organization didn't exist. What happened? That a group of people or a person decided that resources should be managed and that they were the perfect ones to manage it. So management can be great if you are really looking to take care of everyone. But the fact that the management it's only in the hands of a few and they use the resources however they decide is the best for everyone without everybody benefiting from them, it's a problem. Now I know that now we have democratic systems where we can vote one person in and another person out. That doesn't mean that that person in charge is gonna see what is best for everyone. And we see that Susan Collins books come out at a particular time. It's something that we need to reflect on. So we see this in Panem. We see a government that was formed after a revolution where the capital still has all the power because that was the point of the revolution, rebelling against the capital. We don't know how that started, how one single place had the power to control all of the citizens of Panem. And then there's a revolution. The people who are rebelling lose the revolution. This is not a story about how people live when once they win the revolution. This is all of the books are about people struggling during this type of government who takes control over every single one and every single thing and doesn't allow the people to prosper. Only the few prosper. So this is a very specific type of government. One thing that we see, especially in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is the book that we're focusing on, is how people make the same mistakes. We realize that there was a government already like the capital. There was a revolution. They lost the revolution. We see that this is 10 years into winning the war, the capital winning the war, and we see the games and we see that they have been going on for 10 years and no one dares to make a difference. No one dares to make a change. There's a few people now in this book. We do have a few rebels, but they are not organized. They're very sparse, therefore they cannot create momentum to rebel against the capital. And in this case, we're actually seeing the points of view from the capital, how it affects everyone, how the revolution affects the people in the capital and the people in the districts. And again, these are just facts, right? And we see that the capital is in this magnificent place that they're trying to pretend that it is. Not everybody lives the same way. Not everybody has wealth. Not everybody has an opportunity to thrive. And this is also another seed for the capital to continue, however, to make it so that everyone in that capital is thriving so they never again question that the government, what they're doing is correct. Now, if only the few see this and they're all thriving, why would they think otherwise? One of the things that it does here, obviously, is limit how everyone is viewed. And we see that. We see that the Hunger Games are being televised, but if people don't have TVs, how will they watch it? So, only again, even in the district, only the privileged can go ahead and watch them. So that is something else that is to be taken into account. That the government really only has control over a few people, and how are they gonna manage that? Something that I noticed also in this book, I'm talking about the government and I'm talking about the leadership. However, we know there's a president and we never see that president. We don't see that president as someone who is actually there for everyone and who is actually present and in control of everyone. We see different people starting to build what is the pandemic that we know on the Hunger Games. We see people like Dean Highbottom, who is the creator of the games. We see Dr. Go, who is the game maker, who is a mad scientist, who is the one creating the mutts. Um, we see them playing their part. So again, just like the rebellion cannot be accomplished in a day with one person, same with the government. You have many pieces, many players creating this world. And the question is, if we notice that the world isn't what it's supposed to be, like Dean Highbottom, why isn't he doing anything? Why aren't they moving? And the same question is asked a lot in Sunrise on the Reaping. And the only person who we do see rebelling, which is Sejanus, it seems as an other. It seems as a weird person. It seems like he's an irrational, emotional person. And because he's from district 2, it is very normal to say, oh, it's because he's district, he is not like us. They have the advantage of saying that to him. But what if someone from the district did something? Why is it that people are so afraid, and why is it that everyone enters into this contract, and nobody there says a thing? So that is something to think about. This book doesn't give you answers, gives you questions for you to think about. This book is presenting questions, is showing you how someone goes again from point A to point B, but it's showing you all that path, all the stepping stones, and all the people that contribute to that. Even though this person, I know it's gonna end up being this way anyways. So if there wasn't a thing that was gonna happen that was gonna make him different, because he already had the struggle inside of him, but he had something even stronger, and that is his ego and his um need to survive and thrive. His nature was already that of someone who was on top. The ego was talking. So no matter who was around him, the people who were gonna feed that ego and who were gonna help him stay on top were the ones that are gonna influence him the most, because that is the nature that he has inside. So that is that question, that is the thesis, and that I think it's the only answer that is giving to us. Let's think about it also. The whole thing about Hunger Games is about controlling the masses. And right now the masses are towards the capital, and because nobody else wants to risk anything, because the punishment for risking it is incredibly brutal and harsh, especially in those early days. After that, when we see the Hunger Games, it's a little bit more of a show. But right now, it's incredibly brutal, and it's going to be really hard for people to want to take that step. And it's another question that is presented in Sunrise and the Reaping, and obviously with the other books. How long does it take for people to make a difference, to make a change? If you think that you are not the person who it's gonna be the Mockingjay, the girl on fire, Sejanus, who wants to change the world. If you are not one of those people, is then you do nothing? That is the question also that is asking, that this book is asking. Should you do nothing because you don't see anything beneficial, or should you do something to just light up a spark? Not a fire, but a spark. So that's also a question that is asked here. Okay, so one of the things also when we keep up talking about government, one of the things that we want to talk about is whether your government is good or bad. Is the question of, were they always like this? And that is what I want to discuss when it comes to this particular book. And let's just talk about evil. Everybody sees Snow as this evil person, this horrible monster, which he is. Let me just state that there is no romance, like rose colored glasses here. Like, no, no, no. He is an evil person and he is horrible. However, people are not born that way. Even if your even if your nature is to be a little bit evil or whatever you want to call it, if it's to manipulate, if it's to be led by ego, whatever you think it is, even if your nature is that, you are not born like that. All of those concepts of evil, of ruling, of good versus evil, of them versus of them versus us, of government, of controlling or ruling, of leadership and followers. All of those are man made concepts, right? Like we just said about governments, they weren't always around. It was at a certain point where people decided, hey, few of us should control what is going on and we should control the resources for everyone's sake. But really, that didn't pan out too good for all the world. But I digress. So the question is, in this book is presented, is evil born or made? Is it nature or is it nurture? And we see Snow in different stages. Obviously, we don't see Snow at the end, but we see Snow, the very first time we see Snow is as a little boy witnessing something horrible and traumatic. And I know this is a little bit out of the topic, but if you guys know, the first 6 years of life are basically what are gonna form you into being who you are. And obviously, you can always change and modify and all that, but that core it's in there. And whatever you learn in those first 6 years, and then maybe in the next six, it's gonna be so important for you to develop who you are, and for you to develop those things that you later on in life are going to have to struggle with, deal with, or thrive with. And we see Snow as a child in the revolution, in the first rebellion. We see what happens to his neighbors, uh, who they become, how he sees the world. And then we see him struggle as a teenager in order again to pretend to still be this respectable a part of the family, to pretend like he still has wealth when he has not. The ego, the pretense, the whole circus of the capital was so important. It was their livelihood, and all of those elements made him who he ended up being. Like I said, I think that he is still gonna end up being who he was, because at some point he was gonna meet people, especially in the capital, who was gonna stroke his ego, who were gonna offer him more if he just did this or that. So that was always in his nature. But if we pretend, let's just pretend, right, for a second, that he was in a different environment, in a loving environment, in a utopian environment, he was probably not gonna end up that way. Even though his nature was that way, he might have had a chance if nurture, the environment would nurture him. But that was not the case for him. And again, not to excuse, but every single moment in your life, every single thing that happens to you will shape who you are, for the good or for the bad, depending on your nature. Was he willing to do evil in order to thrive? 100%. And the more he did, the less it affected him, obviously. The more desensitized he became, and obviously he turned out to be who he was. Now, what are some examples of this type of thing that made him into this president who would decide to keep the control, even more control, as he went on to be president and even shape the games into the spectacle that they were? We see that when he's a child, seeing someone what they do for in order to survive, to have food. We see as a teenager when he realizes what his uh his cousin might be willing to do in order for them to thrive. We see how in the games he is, um the instinct for survival goes in. And we see this possible father figure who could have said that they were best friends with his dad, could have taken him under his wing and shaped him to be different, always believed the worst in him. We don't know what he saw, right? We don't know what High Bottom saw from the snows, and even from Corio when he was little, that it made him think that he would end up just like his father. I mean, he probably knew something was there, but we see that the humiliation, the revelation that he knows who he is and what his struggles are, that's getting into the core of his ego and what he wants to eliminate because he's so ashamed of. We see a Dr. Gold who is always trying to teach him different things in order to have control, to differentiate himself from others. So all of those elements contribute to the ruler he's gonna be later on. And it is a ruling. I know they call him president, but he's been president for like ever. So it's more like royalty than anything. And we see the creators of the system, like I talked before. We don't have a government with one person who makes all the decisions. We have different people who make decisions. And in this case, I have three people. We have Dr. Go, who is the game maker for the season and the creator of the mods and these creatures who are going to be horrible and part of the games. We see High Bottom, who is the creator of the games, who is the man with the idea of the games in the first place, and who is also in charge of the academy, the education of the kids from the capital, who could be educated differently, but he chooses not to. Even if it's just in order to survive, he is contributing. Even if it's just in order not for him to be considered a traitor or whatever, he is contributing to this system, no matter what his excuse is. And then we have Mr. Plant, who benefited for the creation of the weaponry to help win the war, and now he is a very rich man in the capital. We have one person in the whole book who is actually actively all the time fighting against the system, which is Sejanus. Now, everybody else may be like in a gray area, get it? Maybe is thinking, okay, if we do this now, maybe we can do this later. Maybe we have an excuse to accept this or do this right now, but it's because of this. He is the only one who says, no, this is completely wrong, but he is alone. He is a lone spark. It will not create a flame. He is the person who is blindly good and sees something different. And I'm sorry, but I think Sejanus has high capacities. I think he has a high emotional capacity. I think he has a high creative capacity, and I think he is very smart. He is has intellectual capacities. However, it is impossible for him to go against the system. And again, he is seen like another, like someone different. And because his district, that is even a bigger excuse why he doesn't belong. And no one wants to say that he doesn't belong because he's actually right and you're all doing wrong things. They just want to say that his district, and that is why he doesn't belong. And we see even Snow say that. And we see everybody saying that actually. Another reason that we need to pay attention to this book is because of the game and the show. And this is actually something that I don't think Susan Collins intended, but we gave it to her with a bow, like a big gift. So, and not a good one. So, the first thing is the show, right? The Hunger Games. So, we have the Hunger Games as we remember. Let's also keep in mind that the Hunger Games came out, the trilogy, everybody loved it. Movies came out, everybody loved it. And then we have all of a sudden this book that goes all the way back to the beginning and is trying very subtly to tell you to wake up to what is happening, how things get started, and how you go from something very simple to 75 years later, a full on show that has everybody mesmerized and a full rebellion because people are actually in distress and everybody thinks about the show, and that's it. So, what is the game? How it got created? So the Hunger Games were created as a consequence for a rebellion against the capital, where 13 districts revolted against the central power that fed, loved, and protected them. After the rebellion was suppressed, the capital imposed the Hunger Games as a way to control the district and ensure they never rebelled again, using them as a reminder of the capital's power and the cost of rebellion. So this is why uh, the Hunger Games were created. Now, remember when I told you the description of the first government? So people who decided that they were gonna take care of the resources, manage everything. The government's supposed to feed them, love them, and protect them. They didn't do any of those things. When government was created, that was the thing: the resources, the protection of the people, right? And well, the love is you're supposed to want to take care of your own people, right? And that didn't happen. That didn't happen then. That didn't isn't happening now, and it's not happening in the Hunger Games. Now, when people in the book are discussing the games, they say the following: the Hunger Games are a public spectacle, a reminder of the capital's power. The games are a form of entertainment for the capital. The Hunger Games are a constant reminder that the capital is in control. The capital wants to keep the districts in line, and the Hunger Games help them do that. So the Hunger Games, like I said, started as punishment, and here we see in this book we see that that's how it started, right? And we have those quotes that is true. The reminder of the power is the reminder of the control. Where's the love and the protection? Is control and power, right? And then it's a form of punishment, not love, punishment. For what? For something that other people did 10 years ago because they had a good reason, because back then they were probably not being loved, protected, or fed either, right? So that is what the games are about. And in this book, we see that. We see that they treat the district tributes as cattle. They put them in like cattle trucks. I don't know what they're called. And then they drop them in the zoo. They're animals to be laughed at a zoo. They don't even have real animals. And they have the kids from the district. And the worst thing is that they are the kids. And why is it the kids? It's because the kids are vulnerable. They can't do anything about it. And the parents are going to live in fear for their whole lives. So if you take someone's life, but they're a parent, like they're always gonna say, "Take me instead." That's the rational thing to do, right? But no, we want to punish you and want you to live forever with what you did, even though some of these people weren't even part of the rebellion. And that is how you keep control, how you keep the fear and the power and the control over the people. So that is why they start. And I say games show because they start as the Hunger Games, and they are really like mass, you know what? But then in this with Dr. Gold, seeing that people don't really watch the games, seeing how they can maybe reinvent them for the 10th anniversary, it becomes a show. So something that was a form of punishment becomes a form of entertainment. If something that's a punishment now becomes a form of entertainment, you're going to swallow it up a little bit easier. You're going to start feeling a little bit better about what you're watching because it's funny, it's entertainment, it's not necessarily real because things that don't affect you directly aren't real to you. I know that your brain sees, like your eyes sees them, your brain registers them, but if it's not happening to you, it's not really happening at all in like your mind and your core, you don't feel it as much because you're not part of that experience, and that's where privilege comes from, right? So if you're privileged enough to only watch the games, then it's gonna be a form of entertainment. It's not for anyone else. For everyone else, it's still a punishment, but it's entertainment for them, for the capital. And who has the idea to go ahead and make them more flashy, have bets, have sponsors, things like that? No. Choreo. In school, they teach these children from the capital as an assignment, as entertainment, how we can make this better. This is all hypothetical, but then it becomes a reality, right? It becomes a reality when they have stakes also. They see that the capital kids are not doing all that great, all of them. Not everybody's rich. It's not like, again, when we see them in Hunger Games, which everybody is fantastically dressed and great and awesome and everything seems perfect, like they're still struggling. So how can we motivate again the people from the capital not to turn on the government because they're also feeling like the desperation that some of the districts have been feeling, and they involve them. They teach the kids from since they are young the difference between the districts and them. They get them to be mentors. They get them involved in the games. And they're supposed to be winning. There's a prize at the end. There's something for them too. Now, something that I think that is important to remark about this book that is not, like I said, I don't think it was Susan Collins' intent, and but that somehow became that, is that we are looking at this book like the people from the capital look at the game. And I know that's hard pill to swallow because nobody wants to think they're like the capital people. But when this book came out and everything was subtle and everything about someone's transformation was there, again, not for you to feel sympathy or empathy, but understand and maybe recognize it outside in the real world. People said this book was boring. People said that there wasn't enough Hunger Games. There wasn't enough of a show, that it was not what they expected as it becomes the show, like as an entertainment. And maybe this book was not here to entertain us, not necessarily, and not either to educate us. I don't think St. Collins was trying to educate us either. I think she was just showing us how someone becomes that evil. How do you turn into that? How can you see it before your eyes? So how can someone who was once entertaining us is now controlling us, is now in power, is now doing all these things that are gonna be horrible for everyone? So I think this is just something for you to read, taking, and then look outside and open your eyes. It's not meant to be flashy. It's not to be meant to be out there. So let me read you some book reviews that prove this point. I reread this book because watching the movie reignited my interest, and I wanted to see if I could read this book with better appreciation now that Young Snow is hot. LMAO. Sadly, I'm keeping my original rating, as not even my thirst is enough to keep my interest. I enjoy the movie's direction more. We see more of Lucy Gray in the world. So, there it is. this person, after watching the movie, felt like the book might be different, right? She likes that there's more of Lucy in this world. Why? Because she wanted to see the show. She wanted to see the Hunger Games. She wanted to see the romance. And guess what? When the book released, when people were reading the book, they wanted the show. They wanted the Hunger Games. And what is that saying about society? They want more show. Okay, the next one is, this book is so boring, so meandering, unfocused, dry. There's a lack of urgency and emotion, a lack of any connection with the characters outside of Snow, who is so self serving and self pitying that I couldn't even have fun hating him. Sejanus is in this book. Where are your thoughts about Sejanus? Like, what are you reading? And yes, I know that Snow is the main character, right? We understand this. We want to see him go from point A to point B, from A to Z. That is his journey. But Sejanus is the one. Se- Sejanus is the show, if that's what you want to call it. He is the one. He is the spark. He is the mockingjay. He is the one trying to end things. It's not Lucy. Lucy is just a device for him, for his inner monologue and his ego. And Sejanus is the only one who is actually having an effect on him. And I know people are gonna fight me on this, Hannah. I know you're gonna fight me on this one, but this is my take. Sejanus is the moral compass. Sejanus is the one that we're following. The fact that you say that you read this, you have felt nothing. You felt nothing when Sejanus was screaming "Ma," and then the Mockingjays started repeating that. You felt nothing. Girl, go to therapy. Seriously, like, what are you reading? Come back to the Sejanus part, but let me read another review. Just to get to the climax where Snow needs to decide if he wants to be good or poor and in love or bad and successful, I kept waiting for some grand twist or revelation to happen. What I got was a tiny splash of excitement after 500 of uninspired blah. And that is the point of this book. This book is not meant to be flashy, is not meant to show you the shows and show you rebellion and show you all these things. It's meant to teach you the transition of someone who might have an opportunity to choose differently and they don't, and how that happens and why that happens. When we are in real life, we're always telling kids stranger danger, el cuckoo is gonna come for you, or whatever. We always have these monsters, we always have these evil villains in the world throughout history. They are seen as the ultimate evil, but they didn't get there. They weren't born evil, and they didn't get there through like magical dark powers. These are regular children, teens, young adults, and adults who make decisions along the way that end up being that way. That evil person or that bad person or that horrible something that is happening, whether it's government or something else, it's a culmination or it's an amalgamation of everything that happens throughout their lives up to that point. So you are not gonna see. I know people probably expected Corio and Lucy to be this great love affair, and he was so heartbroken that he became evil. But that is not who he is. How can someone who is already evil even love? How can someone who is already working from the side of his own ego and his own needs and his own selfishness even love someone else? We see this with Tigress. He doesn't even realize what Tigress has to do because she's older in order for them to survive, for little Corio to survive. And now that he's old enough, he wants to take that into his own hands, but he hasn't even done that. He hasn't even wondered why, what happened, or how he got to that place, or how he has even survived, because if it wasn't for tigers, they would all be on the street and they would all be starving. um so yeah, I think that his selfishness, you can see it from the beginning, from the very first moment. So no, there was never gonna be anything flashy. There was gonna be all these little moments that show you who he is. And that is what happens in real life. Whenever you see someone on the news or something horrible happen, and you always think, oh, I didn't know that, I didn't know he seemed like such a nice person, she seemed like such a great neighbor. And then there's these complete monsters. Why? Because it's not one thing. They don't go out like dressed up like monsters. There's not like magical things happening in their home as villains. They're little moments every day that turn them into that little things that they do to show you who they are. And it's like we need to wake up and see that in people that are around us in real life. I think that is the whole point of this book, is for you to recognize, to see people when they are having those moments in real life. People always show you who they are from the beginning. Okay, so, with that, what is the point of each of the characters? At the end of the day, this is a book. So for Snow is Snow lands on top. So Snow, his whole thing from the beginning is to win, is to thrive, is to be better than anyone. He wants to be better than Sejanus. He wants to be better than his classmates. He wants to win the prize, do more in the academy. The grandma was always, "You're gonna be president. You're gonna be President Snow." He had that in his head from the beginning. There was nothing that was gonna stop him. So let's talk about him, because people seem to be confused about him wanting to be with Lucy or wanting to go to the district. He has no choice, like literally no choice. He is caught cheating, so he's willing to do anything and everything to win the games. And he is caught cheating. He says things to Lucy uh, for him to feel better about what he's doing to her, because she is her tribute. So he does think, and she does stroke his ego. So that makes him think, and he's also a teenager. Let's remember that he's a teenager with hormones, and there's this pretty girl who's stroking his ego. The only way that he can actually see Lucy as someone who can potentially be a love match, if you want to call it, is every time he sees her as someone who, again, could potentially be a partner. He tries to convince himself that she is not district, that she is, since she is part of the covey, she probably even from the capital, they travel all over. He's always having this image in his head. He's always having this image in his head that she is not really district. The Lucy that he loves, that he likes, that he can match up with is not the Lucy that is there in real life. Whenever he sees her, he sees things that he doesn't like about district, and then he has to convince himself that she is not district, and he switches that, and he sees it in another way in order to convince himself that she is not district. So when we get to the part where he is sent to the districts, he has no choice. He thinks that everything's done, everything's over. He will never be able to show himself in the capital again. So I might as well go with the girl who liked me, right? Is not, he didn't go uh, get her because they were both thriving and winners. He just went to be with her so that he wouldn't be alone. And then he was get his ego maybe stroke a little bit more. But that's it, because even when he gets to district, he doesn't like anything. He doesn't like the heat. He doesn't like the people. He doesn't like anything about the environment. He hardly ever sees Lucy Gray either. So again, she's still this image in his head. They're still in some sort of game. They're both trying to survive the games. Lucy's trying to survive being back at the district as a winner with Billy Tope, with the mayor's daughter. She's like in this whole like personal dynamic that she's trying to survive, and also the covey, with the covey protecting them. like she protected the other district, the other tribute from her district, and then he is playing the game. He's trying to come out as a winner. So he is always trying to land at the top. He is trying to make the best of his time in the district, but not really, because he has another choice. It's not like he chose to be there. And when he gets the opportunity to present the test to be sent away, he takes it. No questions asked, no love for Lucy there. So let's stop thinking that this is a romantic thing. What is he fighting? Why is he so angry at Lucy? Why is he so bitter in Sunrise? Why is he hating Katniss so much? Is because he got outsmarted by someone who he thought might not be district. Not because he loved her, is because he got outsmarted by her. He couldn't decipher her at the end because he never really knew her. He never really listened to her. Um, and that's what makes him mad. I think more than this idea that he loved Lucy and he broke his heart, he is mad at himself that a district girl was able to almost make him give up on his life. So I think he's mad at himself. Lucy is someone who represents a moment where he was a little bit weak because at the end he didn't choose her. And he took her out pretty easily. My theory is that she's out. Um, so yeah, it's not that she reminds him of the love that they share. She reminds him of how weak he could be in his eyes because of what his goals are. So that's why he's so mad. What is the point of Sejanus? No right to take away their life and freedom. Those are things everyone is born with, and they're not yours for the taking. So this is Sejanus through and through, from the beginning to the end. The capital has no right to do anything that they are doing, and he's gonna fight against it. But his downfall is his belief. His belief that the world can be better, but really believing that someone who he can trust is like him. Someone who is all ego. He doesn't recognize it. He doesn't recognize the evil. He doesn't recognize the ego. He doesn't recognize what he the nature of Snow. He wants to see the best in his friend, and he never sees anything else. He just sees the good that he does for him, never questions anything else, and that is his downfall. If he would have had a different friend, he could have maybe had a different outcome, but he chose the wrong person who thought he was gonna light a spark with. He was always gonna put out his fire, always. And what is the point of Lucy? Well, as they say, it is not over until the mockingjay sings. So Lucy is a mockingjay. Lucy is this weird hybrid of a capital bird and a district bird that got together and made something new. And that is Lucy. She's not district. She's not capital. She's someone from the cubby. She's a bird who was free and now is caged in District 12. So she has this different dynamic. She is someone who is seeing herself as a cage bird, and she's also trying to survive, not much thrive, but survive with the cubby and survive for herself. Um, she is gray in every area. She is not nature. She is not nurture. She can be, uh, I'm not gonna say evil because she's not, but she can be calculative when she wants to be. But this is in order to survive. She is not doing things to hurt anyone else. As a matter of fact, in order to survive, she's willing to put even herself in danger. I'm pretty sure she knows the moment Snow hits District 12, because we're not in her mind, so we're not sure. But from the way she's being acting, she knows that he is the only way she can survive the Hunger Games, and she already count herself dead. When he goes in there and she sees that he treats her differently than the other mentors, She knows that he can be someone who can help her out. So she uses that, and not in a mean spirited way. Like they're both using each other. It's an unspoken contract. And then once he gets there to 12, she knows that he is gonna be there. How is she gonna survive that? And she even says it at some point when they before they even run away. She said that she thought about going to 13. She wants to be free. She didn't go back to the district just to stay there. She is planning on maybe leaving. But she said that she wouldn't be able to do it alone. And when Snow's and she, I don't remember who, but when they suggest to run away together, she's again using him not in a mean way, but she knows that she needs him in order to take that leap. Um, but also comes to fight her in the end. What is the point of Dr. Goal in this story? All your fine manners, education, family background, everything you pride yourself on, stripped away in a blink of an eye, revealing everything you actually are. A boy with a club who beats another boy to death. That's mankind in its natural state. So from the beginning, the whole point of Dr. Go is to show us that someone there believes to the core that the nature of most people, even capital people, is to survive no matter what, to do anything and everything in order to survive. And when you, even a capital boy, are in danger, you will go down just like that. Now, she does make that distinction between capital people and district people. She believes that district people are in that form, I guess, in that survival mode every day. But that's because they put them there. Like there's no other choice that they have. But she believes that capital people are a little bit better, but if the opportunity presents themselves, they will turn. And what is the point of Dean Highbottom? I only dreamed them up as an assignment, a joke. I was drunk. Now the blood of so many more generations will be in my hands. Now Dean Highbottom is a tricky one because he, just like Corio, was doing an assignment, and I think he might see himself in there, and that's why he's so afraid. Just like Corio, he was doing his homework. He was trying to pass, I guess, his class, but that turned into like the biggest evil that they could find. And now he's there, and now he's in the capital, and now he is the dean of the academy, and there is nothing he can do. And he really feels like he failed Panem. He really feels like he failed at children, and he is teaching children, and he just gave up. He gave up on life. He gave up on trying. He just decided to believe the worst in everyone. And the whole point of Dean Highbottom is that there are gonna be people out there that believe that something is not right, but will not do anything about it. We don't see Highbottom do absolutely anything about it by drown in his sorrows, and there's a lot of people like that. Now, my point with Jane is this is not about romantic heartbreak. This is not the story of Lucien and Corio. Look at them in this picture. They're supposed to be running away to blissful life together, and they could not be more upset about it. This book is about the heartbreak of humanity disappearing. This is what happens when we look, but we don't see. When the trajectory is going, where the train is leaving the station with that person who is meant to do horrible things, and we just let it go. That is the point. We see each stop of the train and we just stand there. This is not about the big things that they do. This is about the little things that they do all the time. You can blame it on the circumstances, the environment, but you made the choice you made, no one else. So even though your circumstances are gonna be different and your circumstances can be horrible, in this case, the position Snow was in, inside the arena when he's trying to save Sejanus, he decides what to do with that time. This is like when Gandalf said it's up to you to decide what to do with the time that is giving to you. Well, Snow decided that it was time for him to be on top. That was the whole thing. In the environment where he was, his nature won over. He could have chosen something else, but he chose evil, and that's always gonna be the case. The other part that is, I think, mostly misinterpret, because again, I've already seen the movie, read the book twice, and I come to the same conclusion. So I don't know if I'm misinterpreting it, or you are, or we all are. Sam Collins wanted to say something, but I really do think that when we see humanity disappearing, and the moment the catalyst is when Snow decides to send the recording to Dr. Go of Sejanus, and that causes Sejanus' demise. He truly believes that Sejanus' father, like all those times before, again, because we're paying attention, we see the trajectory. We see that every time that Sejanus is in trouble, his dad, who is now incredibly rich and who is part of the company who supplies the armament for the capital, he's an important part of the capital now. He always gets Janus out of trouble. He's gonna go ahead and send the recording, and just like Dr. Gold asked Snow to get him Sejanus out of the arena, he's gonna ask Mr. Plinth to get Sejanus out of the district. The thing is, Dr. Gold was trying to teach Snow something about his humanity, or the lack thereof, and she doesn't care about Sejanus. There is no point in there. He is someone who will forever defend the district. He's actually someone who is in her way. So this is a perfect opportunity to get rid of him. He gives Dr. Go the opportunity to eliminate Sejanus. And when he realizes that, then he is the one that does this, I think that is the moment when he truly breaks. And we see him when he goes through the things of Sejanus, when he sees the pictures, and we see the morphling, and we see different things in there. We see that he had something. I know throughout the book we see Snow talking about Sejanus in a bad way, but let's put this in context, right? With Sejanus, something else happened. In Sejanus, he sees good all the time. And when he catches himself seeing good, empathizing, liking him, agreeing with him, automatically he's like, no, no, but he's district. No, no, but he's too emotional. No, no, but he's constantly trying to muffle his feelings, his love for his friend, because he is district, because he has been told all his life that district people are different, right? So even though he recognizes something good, and he recognizes that they can be good friends, he's always trying to convince himself that no, no, he's not my friend. No, 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 he's district. No, 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 I'm just using him. Pay attention to all of those passages. Whenever he talks about Lucy, he sees horrible things about her, and he convinces himself that she's better. Whenever he talks about Jaina, he sees all the good, but he has to convince himself that he is worse, that he is district. And also we see him when he has nothing else to lose, when he thinks that he is gonna be caught for what happened to the mayor's daughter and all that, and he goes and talks to like the sergeant or whatever. He talks about Sejanus as his brother. And there's a quote that happened before, but shows you the way that he perceives Sejanus. So it says his mind could fixate on a problem like that, anything really, and not let go, as if controlling elements of this world would keep him from ruin. It was a bad habit that blinded him to other things that could harm him. A tendency towards obsession was hardwired into his brain and would likely be his undoing if he couldn't learn to outsmart it. So I think that Snow really thinks that he is doing something good for Sejanus. Sejanus is an overthinker. Sejanus has big emotions. Sejanus is looking for a solution to this problem and he feels frustration because he seems to be the only one that's looking for solutions to this problem. We see other people, but like I said before, people are rebelling like from different parts. They're not organized or anything like that. So really, he feels alone in the capital trying to fight this. And even um, when they go to the districts, it's no the one who's telling him you can be a medic or you can be this or you can be that. You can find other ways to help. It doesn't have to be this big thing, this big rebellion thing. You don't have to be so overt about it. So Snow is always gonna have that point of view of this guy is gonna get himself into trouble and it's my job to get him out of trouble. Like I said before, I know that a lot of people don't believe this. I know that a lot of people don't think they were real friends. But if they weren't real friends, he wouldn't constantly think of a way of getting him out of trouble. For example, when he goes into the arena, we know that Dr. Go is asking him to do that, right? So we know that he might perceive it as he has no other choice. But the rest of the time, he is doing it willingly. And even if you think, oh yeah, he's doing it because he wants the love of the plants or he wants the a reward or something like that, let's remember that when he does save Sejanus from the arena and he goes to the plants expecting a reward, he doesn't get one. So after that, he knows that helping Sejanus might not get him necessarily what he needs. So we know that it's the very few moments where he might be actually trying to help someone. There's always something with him that is selfish. He's selfishly trying to help him because there's a need for him, but also because he is his friend and he is trying to do something for him. Now I know a lot of people don't believe that, but that is something that I did notice and that I paid close attention when I was doing the re-listen. Um, and the unfortunate part is that that vision that Snow has, that something that Sejana is gonna do is gonna end up getting him into trouble and maybe be his demise, is actually provoked by Snow, because when they have the conversation and he records it with the Jabberjays or the Mockingjays, I can't remember. I think they're the Jabberjays. Um, he sends it to Dr. Gold thinking he will just get sent back to the capital, that dad will pay for like a new building or something, and hence clean, everybody's safe. He actually thinks that he's saving Sejanus. Again, this is a very delusional way of thinking. This is a way of trying perhaps for him to be like the hero and him thinking that he's doing something noble. I think part of him is thinking that he's doing something noble. If he thought about it for a little bit more, he would probably not send it to Dr. Go. Um, but he does that, and we know the repercussions for Sejanus. So yeah, I think the moment that he realized that Sejanus is the one who is being hanged on the hanging tree, and it was his doing, um, is the moment that he breaks, and I think that's the last of it. I think that by the time he tries to run away with Lucy, he already feels like there's nothing left, and that's why he wanted to run away. Um, I know that there's an opportunity for him to go back to another district and have a better life, and he is gonna take it. He's gonna take that way out, but there's just something that stops him, and he continues with Lucy. But we immediately realize that he is gonna go back. That he is too selfish. Um, and by that time he's already, I feel like whatever he had, whatever other views he had that might make him good or make him want to run away or make him see the capital for what it really is, he's already done with it. When they're running away and he's talking about the woods and how dirty everything is and hungry and smelly and all that, we already know that he is not someone who is willing to do that. He's willing to sacrifice nothing in order to get anything. He's willing to sacrifice people and sacrifice others, but not anything for himself. So that is his nature. And then we have obviously when Tigress sees him, there's pastime. they are well off again, and she sees him, and she says, "You look just like your father, Coriolanus." And she calls him Coriolanus and not Corio. She notices, she knows that this is the switch. That is humanity disappearing in him. And she realizes that. Now she's gonna be by his side because it's her cousin, but still. Okay. And my conclusion of this book, and why do I think this book is important, why I think people should read it, why I think people should look at it with a bit more of a critical eye. I know this is YA, and I know this is a dystopian, so this is entertaining also, but there's always messages and there's always things in here. And what I think that the message for this one was that if we pay attention, we can see people in the world turning into good or evil in slow motion. So, like I said, it's not that something flash is going to happen, something huge is going to happen. I would actually argue that the whole Sejanus, if you focus on Sejanus instead of focusing on him and Lucy, you will see all those flashy moments. The thing is, we're looking at the show, we are distracted with the show, and we're looking for a flashier show, for a flashier romance, when really what's happening is his relationship with Sejanus and his time as a child in the academy, in the district. This is all shaping him in slow motion, very little steps that he is taking into becoming Coriolanus, no president of Panem, that monster that we see on the other books. So that is my defense for Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Let me know if you agree with me. Let me know if you might want to reread this with another maybe point of view. Maybe look out for the things that I talked about. I honestly, I think I liked it more the second reread. I think I'm gonna keep rereading. Like I said, the first time I listened to it, those were the moments that broke me, and the moments with Sejanus, and those were the moments that I was paying more attention to rather than the games or rather than Lucy. And then this time, I honestly thought that I had made a mistake and maybe listened to it wrong or got too distracted because of everything that I'm seeing online. And then I reread it, and I'm still thinking the same thing. So I would invite you maybe to look for that. Look at his relationships with uh Tigress, with Sejanus, with Dr. Gold, which is something that a lot of people do focus on, and with Dean Highbottom. I think Dean Highbottom and Sejanus and Dr. Gold are the ones that are making him into what he becomes. And I think that, again, like I said, his nature was always gonna be evil, was always gonna be him being a bad person. And we already see things that are his selfishness, his lack of awareness of others, all that is there. His ego is there. So those are all the building blocks for the person that he could become. If other people would have shown him a different way, perhaps, I don't know, because his building blocks are there. He was already that person. But that is the point for you to think, huh, okay, what if this would have happened? Maybe there wouldn't have been a snow. Uh, so, anyways, that is it. And again, no sympathy, no empathy, just facts and understanding on how he became who he was. So I hope that this motivates you to reading this book again, and see what if you like it or not. Let me know if you think that my theories are completely nuts and crazy and not based on anything. I don't know. I'm pretty confident with what I think, with my beliefs towards this book and the message and the relationships. But let me know. That's the fun of reading. Everybody takes something different away from the books. So yeah, that is my whole take on the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Thank you so much for watching. Remember that if you like this video, go ahead and like it so you can tell YouTube that you like this type of content from me, and they can share it also with other people. You have all my links on the description on how you can follow me and support me and my channel. I would really appreciate it. If you made it through the end, go ahead and put a bird a snake, or why don't we put a little flower for Sejanus? Thank you so much for watching again. Remember to keep reading and keep blooming, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.